All right, beautiful people, today we're going to just refresh on the standard order of operations. So the essential question is, what is the standard order for solving all expressions? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to refresh what is the order of operations. Okay, and this means what is the order that you solve all problems whenever you have them, like all expressions. What is the order for it? So there are 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to wait for a few seconds and hopefully you come up with the very first thing that you look for in an expression. The very first thing. Okay, so you should have come up with parentheses or grouping symbols. I'm pretty sure that everybody in the chat said parentheses or grouping symbols of some sort. Okay, I'm going to write parentheses, or grouping symbols. Okay, now let's make a big note over here that this is the very first thing. Doesn't matter what else is in there, always look for parentheses first. Okay. All right, how about the second thing that you look for? After you're done with parentheses, what's the second thing you look for? This is something that we haven't done a lot, so think for a minute. Look back in your notes because we wrote it down in our notes. Okay, if you looked through your notes, you should have found exponents is the very second thing that we look for. Okay, for those of you who can't remember what an exponent is because we haven't really touched on it, an exponent is a number like 5 raised to a power like 2, or a number like 7 raised to the 5th, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and you'll learn more about exponents next quarter. Okay, after exponents, what do we look for after exponents? It's the next thing that we look for. Again, check your notes. Check your notes. Okay, you should be back and you should have come up with multiplication and division. So multiply and divide. And what was that key phrase that I put at the end of it every time? Left to right. Okay. Now notice multiplication and division is on here, but addition and subtraction isn't. So we're going to make another note over on the left, and we're going to say multiply always. Always before you add. Okay. Multiplication and division always comes before you add, even if addition is first in the expression. Always multiply or divide first. Okay, now take a few seconds. Answer in the chat, what is the last thing that we do? Okay, you should have come back with subtract and add. And again, that key phrase that I put at the end of this one is left to right. Okay. You should have this in your notes at least 3 times by now because we've gone over it a few times. Okay, this is the most important thing in this section, is knowing to go through this like a checklist. You start with parentheses, the very first. If you don't see any parentheses, check if there are any exponents. If you don't see any exponents, multiply or divide from left to right. It doesn't matter which one, as long as you do the one that comes first. And then add or subtract, again, left to right. Okay, super important that you're doing all of those steps in order. So let's do a practice problem. Okay, we're going to start with something with not a lot of things to do. So I have parentheses 5 minus 3 and parentheses times 6. Okay, so over here on the left, let's figure out what operations are happening here. What things do you see? What do you see? Take a few seconds, write it in the chat. I see subtraction, I see multiplication, and I see parentheses. So then we follow order of operations. Which of these things comes first? Step 1 says parentheses. So in the parentheses, I have subtraction. 5 minus 3 is 2. Now I have 2 times 6, and that's the only operation left, which is 12. Okay, second video, we're going to do another problem.